Good to go. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting of the City Design Review Board today to order. We were all emailed the minutes for approval. Did anybody see any amendments, changes, additions? I move we accept as written. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, our first and only case for hearing today is case DRB 2025-01. It's an adoption of the City of Florence downtown design standards. Staff?
Okay, thank you, Jamie. As you recall, we did have Bolton and Mink here at the last meeting, and they provided an overview of the draft for the design standards, or the updated design standards. We did, put that draft online. I think all of you all had access to that, as did any members of the public. So one of the purposes of getting together here today is to provide the public hearing for that. I don't know that we have too many interested folks at this point, but we did have a number of public meetings leading up to this, which provided a lot of good input. We had a steering committee put together that provided a lot of input on this. I think our document is coming together. We did, between when the original draft got put out and over the kind of the holidays, we did, between staff and the consultants, add some outdoor dining provisions to the code. All those were updated in the draft version online. So basically, and I can probably pull it up here on the screen, but we did add some.
I want to say it was like page 36, the downtown.
So yeah, we did add an outdoor dining section. It goes through prohibited and restricted activities. It essentially makes provisions that outdoor dining furniture is made of durable equipment. It places a permitting procedure for outdoor dining that would be in the sidewalk or in need an encroachment permit from the city in some form or fashion. So it references the Unified Development Ordinance and the permitting process for that, and then on-site outdoor dining as well, as such as some of the courtyards that are in the rear of some of the restaurants. It speaks to those and the types of furniture that might need to go in there. You can see it talks about the furniture must be constructed from durable commercial grade materials and well maintained in good working order. We do occasionally get, it has to sustain winds of certain mile per hour or be secured such that it won't blow around, things of that nature. But those were added. So I don't know if you guys have had time to look at that in the draft form since it was updated, but it did get added in. It was something that we were working with on the consultants, and they kind of came to us at a last hour. And if outdoor dining is in the public right of way, it also goes over some of the insurance requirements for that, because only beer and wine can be served in the public right of ways if it goes out into that area. And there are some insurance requirements that the city requires in order to do that. Those would, if it's on-site outdoor dining, it would be different, of course. But at any rate, I did want to make everybody aware of that. And I did want to also go through the proposed adoption procedure for the design standards. These are essentially part of the zoning code. So they have to go through Design Review Board for recommendation, which is why we're here today. And then they would move on to Planning Commission. Planning Commission would review them and then recommend them to City Council. And then City Council would require 2 readings of the document for final adoption. So even if things go smoothly, through the process or no hiccups, it's still at least a 3 to 4 month process before we get it through all those boards. And you guys are the first step in all this. You guys are the closest to these standards and are the ones that implement them. So we like to start with the design review board, because all the other boards and commissions will, when we take it there, that's the first question they'll ask is, what was the design review board's recommendation regarding the document? So with that being said, I am going to, I know you've all had access to it for at least a month now, or since our last meeting, and I kind of wanted to just, ask that you open it up for discussion or any questions or concerns you might have with it. And also, we need to hold a public hearing, or at least open it up, even though nobody's
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Anyone have any questions of staff? I guess we'll go ahead and open it up for a public hearing. I do have one comment. I applaud the steering committee and them for streamlining everything and making it a lot more easy to navigate than the old terms.
Yes, I would agree. We as staff had our concerns, but I think as we're ourselves are learning the document and how it operates, I think we're finding that too. Yes.
I know when you go on like the website, you can highlight certain links in it on the current standards. This will be set up that way in the future too, I guess.
So that it cross-links itself. We could, that's not provided as part of the consulting, but we could probably do that, ourselves.
I mean, when I'm researching a project, sometimes I'm sitting down, I've got to go through it. And I found the easiest way to do that is usually I download the whole thing in a PDF editor that's got search capability within the PDF editor, a keyword search if I'm trying to find setbacks or I'm trying to find, requirements or things like that. And the digital searchability is important, right? Especially for people like me or architects or things like when we're we're designing projects and trying to figure things out, what works, what's allowed, what's not. That digital searchability is important. So
I can ask them about it too.
Yeah, we can see if that's something they could provide for us, or if not,
Yeah.
we could work at it to get it.
I mean, it's literally, it's like a Google search on it. It's just you're trying to figure out when you're looking for information, you've got to phrase it different ways. So there are keywords set up in there somehow for finding certain
Oh, I got you.
things, that sort of thing.
We did try to have them reorganize it so that you would go to, okay, non-residential development, I need this.
And there's an index, and that's, it's there.
Yeah.
But that from that engineering architecture point of view, just being able to go through, this is what, 36 pages? I mean, the whole,
Whole thing's 80.
yeah, but like the city zoning ordinance is 400 and something pages.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, which still applies to above and beyond, so you've got to be able to, how do I go through 400 pages?
Right.
Right.
And our city zoning code is set up, so that we do have that search function at the
Right.
top. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It would be nice to get this in a similar format. So
Right,
that,
that's, yeah.
yeah. And maybe we could talk to Encode. That's who hosts our ordinance. Maybe they could incorporate it.
Well, and a lot of them have basically it's a Google based or similar, where they're using a search engine within their database,
Right.
As opposed to Google searching the whole internet is searching this specific thing. I don't know how that's set up or not. Again, for what I've had to do is download the PDF and use a PDF editor with search capability to find it.
Right.
So.
And I understand your pain. We live in that world too, so I get it.
I mean, a lot of times I just email Elaine and ask her where to find it.
Yeah.
She used your search function.
Yeah, she does.
Any other comments or concerns?
Have any of the downtown businesses had anything to say about this?
They were all invited to the workshops and attended, and I assume Hannah's been talking it up with them.
Yeah, I mean, as part of the public process, all downtown businesses, were made aware of the process, and a lot of them did come in. I mean, we had decent turnout. We had 30 to 40 individuals show up at the public workshops. At each one. I mean, the first one had 30 or 40, and maybe the second one had 30. So for a Florence public hearing or public process, that's a very good turnout. So, and a lot of those were downtown business owners or property owners. So, I feel like there was plenty of opportunity for input, and it was received, because it was, it was a very informal process that we went through. So a lot of that was received and incorporated.
And I talked about it a lot with the Timrock Park Neighborhood Association, so residents are well aware of it.
This is indirectly related, but once someone goes before the design review board, and then after everything's done, do they just kind of go on their way, or is there ever any kind of follow-up, like, was that easy, was that hard, like, what would you like to see? Almost like, to me, that's a learning opportunity for the next time there's one of these where we revise, where you kind of have a log. And I mean, as we know, most people, as soon as their case is done, they scurry out, so you don't really get that chance at the end of a meeting. But to me, especially if there's frustrations, especially from business owners, because we want more people to open businesses in Florence, like, is there ever any kind of follow-up afterwards, like with them?
Like a satisfaction survey.
Well, that or just feedback, like open-ended feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always open to that, and and sometimes just in dealing with individuals, we get a sense of how well it went, because there's a lot of frustration when individuals get caught doing something. Those are usually the frustrated individuals when they get ahead of themselves. Either they didn't know, or whether they're purposely getting ahead of themselves, and there's often frustration there. But all in all, most people are generally satisfied once their project gets going. But we could, we could definitely engage.
Well, and the hardest thing, but the most valuable would be a year later. Like, did this affect you in any way?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no. I'm glad I went through it. I'm glad y'all suggested that. That helped me. Or, yeah, that put us in a bind those first few months because our costs went up, or we never opened our business because of it,
Right.
or we had to go. Like, those kind of things would even be helpful, just to know that we are helping people, helping the city, and not putting a burden on people
Right.
to try to make our city better.
I will say that one thing that these guidelines do is it gives more administrative approvals. It's got there's a chart that gives very clear delineation between what we can approve administratively, and then has to come to you. It's broken down into kind of minor projects and major projects. Minor projects can be administratively approved, which I think will take a lot of burden off of the board at times.
And speed it up.
And speed up the process, which is
That's a
what
big
Bryce is concerned about. And of course, if somebody's coming and it doesn't explicitly meet the guidelines, or they're not willing to yield, it may have to come, before a public hearing. But it does give staff and administratively a lot more opportunity to approve things, minor projects, to help facilitate the timeliness. Because I think that is the biggest complaint that we've heard when we slow people down, especially with interest rates and construction costs fluctuating. Then their costs become unknown if we delay them. Yeah.
And I think more people would proactively reach out if they knew that it was going to go quick, or
Right.
and not.
What's that budget amount? What's the budget number for what threshold is that budget
What's-
number?
It's not
Yeah.
anymore. It's based on, basically, we reworded it so somebody brings us something, we say if it meets these guidelines, these standards, then we can approve it administratively. If it does not meet these standards, then it has to come to you guys. So like if they come to us and they want to put on a new roof, if it's going to be either exactly what they had, or it's going to be, say, a metal roof, but it'll be gray and in keeping in character, then we can approve it administratively. just went by experience and what we see day to day with folks. So if we can tell them, now if you tweak your sign a little bit and make it look like this, then we can approve it administratively. But if you insist on having the internally lit sign, you're gonna have to come to the board. And I know a lot of times they'll be like, I wanna get this done now, I'm gonna go back and tweak it a little bit.
And Derek, if you could throw the, yep, there you go. So, this is the chart I was referring to, and, it's got the type of work proposed, and if it's considered a minor project, it could go through with staff approval, and if it's a major project, it would require DRB approval. Things like awnings, chimneys, let me look at I can't see
There's a
it
couple
there.
things on there that are both, in both columns, and that again is based on what they want to do.
Yeah.
How they want to do it.
And of course, it does give us the ability, if an awning's proposed that doesn't meet the requirements, or if it's a new material that needs to be vetted by the board, we could still bring it before the board, if it's something we're uncomfortable with, but they want to push forward with. But all in all, used to most all awnings, if they're over a certain, or if it was awnings and chimneys and gutters that were going up, it might exceed the threshold of monetary requirement, or the monetary requirement. But now we could administratively approve all that as long as it meets the guidelines. So I think that's a very good step forward for us, because that's probably where the frustration lies, is that because when we have to get them on a board agenda, it instantly stops everything. And they have to wait on that meeting while they get all their materials together. Whereas if it was administratively, we could facilitate that likely before the next meeting. So the schedule.
And I always go back to the fire marshal. When they come, they tell you what needs to be done. As long as it's not life-threatening, they say we'll be back in 30 days. They don't put the whole project on halt. And I think there's things that maybe you do need to do that, and others where it's like, what we went through, where it had to do with landscaping, which would be at the tail end of a project, but we weren't able to get going until, and then in our case, it put us behind. Then we went into COVID, so what we
Right.
thought was going to be a 2-month delay turned into a 2-year delay.
Right.
It seemed. So those minor things that don't seem like a big deal, it's like, let's assume, even though we can't approve it this way, let's assume it's probably going to get through the design review board, so we're not going to make you come to a complete halt. But that's a risk you're going to have to take yourself, because it could come to a halt if a surprise comes up in the meeting. But it's almost like let them take that risk on, because you're still not going to be able to open at the end until that gets passed, but
Right.
we feel pretty good about it.
Right. And it does give us a lot more flexibility with people. If they've started a project, but we go out and it generally meets the guidelines, then or it does meet the guidelines, then we don't have to stop them per se. We just instantly get them permitted. That could all happen in a day or so.
So sometimes,
Or hours.
Sometimes I found on plans for something like that, what you want to do is be as vague as possible and just basically draw a box and say landscaping per DRB guidelines.
That's the lesson I learned.
And don't try to specify. Just leave it at landscaping per guidelines.
Draw it what passes, and then we'll deal with it later.
Right. Right.
You're just taking advantage of us now.
I'm going to give my vote of yay. I have to run back to my office to see more patients, actually.
Okay.
So whatever.
Sorry I messed you up.
No, you're good.
Any other questions for staff? If not, anybody would like to make a motion for the adoption of the new standards?
I'll make a motion to adopt the new standard.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So the standards are approved. Our next meeting is scheduled for 2 p.m., Joey,
Thank you very much.
on February 12th.
And it's not even Valentine's Day this year, so you don't have to.
We'll remind
I
you.
don't know.
We'll remind you it's Valentine's Day.
I just don't understand what's going on with this thing.
No problem. Thanks everybody for their time, and we'll see you next month.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Fair